Hi, this is Minder Chen. This is part of the entrepreneurship video series. Today we're going to talk about growth hacking. It is a lean startup approach to marketing. And first of all, I have some online resources that I will point you to. The first one is a collection of online resources for growth hacking. In that list, there is a definitive guide to growth hack, which can be very useful. And I also referred to Jonah Berger's talk about contagious, how things kind of become popular or spread. And you should study this video, and he gave a talk on contagious, which is really related to viral marketing. Let's kind of review our business model canvas. We'll focus on the right-hand side of the canvas because growth hack is really about marketing to a certain extent. And first, you certainly need to know your customer segment. Who are you going to solve a problem for, and who are your customers, and does your value propositions over here and match the needs of the customer in your target customer segments. And in order to reach out to your customer segment to offer your product or services, and we need to define the channel that we're going to use in order to reach to the customer. And we also need to perform various marketing activities in order to get new customer, keep existing customer, and grow the product or services that your customer may be purchasing. So to a certain extent, channel and customer relationships are the two most important building block related to growth hacking and to the marketing for startup firms. So if we zoom into the customer relationships of the business model canvas, we will find out that in practice, basically we're talking about attracting new customer into a marketing funnel, as we call it, and be able to keep existing customer once you acquire them, and eventually to grow the customer's purchase of your product and services. Growth could mean different things. Growth could mean keep acquiring new customer. That's growing the customer base. But growth in this diagram tends to mean that you are growing the type of product and service that the customer are purchasing. In the startup class by Sam Altman, that he emphasized a startup firm need to set an operating rhythm. You need to ship the product, and after that you continuously try to launch new features. However, the most importantly is that at the same time you need to capture and collect performance data, and reporting that as kind of startup metrics in order to understand where you are and where you're going in terms of the potential growth. So in order to do that, to track kind of your progress and growth, we will use metrics which help us to focus on growth. We will spend a lot of time talking about various kind of growth hacking metrics. Here are just some simple one to start with. The total number of user who kind of register on your website, and once re-registered, they are still an active user who will come back to your website frequently, and the type of activity they will perform. The cohort retention stands for new user who you will acquire, over a certain period of time. You will track kind of retention rate of those users, and certainly a paying customer is better than just passing by visitors. So revenue is a critical metrics to measure your success. And last is so-called net promoter score. To put it simply at this point, net promoter score basically means that you will have some really loyal customer who will help you to promote your business. So by Sean Ellis, who coined the term growth hacking, in one of his blog, he stated that a growth hacker is a person whose true north is growth, which means that it is very focused on the growth of the business. So everything they do is scrutinized by the potential impact of scalable growth. Another well-known person in this field is Andrew Chen, who stated that growth hacker are a hybrid of marketer, doing marketing, and coder, which really means programmer, who can build system. A growth hacker is a person who looks at a traditional question: is how do I get customer for my product? And answer with, which means they're going to perform the following activity, such as A/B test, creating an attractive landing page. Landing page, which means if you put out an online ad and people click on that link, and you will bring the user to a particular web page on your website, and that web page is called landing page. How you can increase the viral factor, and also communicate with the user by email. The open graph here stands for some kind of social media. Take advantage of social media to spread the words around. So let's kind of define growth hacking again. Growth hacking is about exploiting information and of users, information of users to generate impressive gains in traffic, revenue, and or users. A growth hacking is typically very limited in scope. Remember, growth hacking is used in the context of startup firm, which are small by its nature. So the growth hacking effort usually is very limited in the scope, and a lot of time you will try to do various things, but it ends up to be a lot of small improvement, which is fine, because when you have a lot of small improvement and keep helping you to grow, that adds up. Okay, and so usually you will have a very specific idea, features, or design for your product, for your website, etc. And we'll use the so-called A/B test. Basically, we have option A and option B, and we'll test its acceptance by the users. And also, we would measure the so-called call to actions, which means when user experience option A and B, are they willing to pursue certain action that we ask them to pursue. If they're willing to go to the next step, that means that the feature is very attractive to them. And that is called call to actions. Okay. So call to action can be a lot of things, depends on the context of your product or service. Can be downloading a software, or following a link to visit a website, or register, subscribe your newsletter. and maybe contact you by email or phone call, or simply just click a like your page and post it on Facebook, and also watching and navigating to some additional content. All of that considered call to actions. A/B test is almost like doing a scientific research study of a control group and experimental group. So you would design a feature of your, say, website, mobile app, and you will split your potential visitor into group A and group B and see how they react to it. If we use, say, conversion rate as an example, variation A subject end up to have 23% conversion rate, and option variation B's groups only have 11% conversion rate, which means that option A's design is probably a better design. The difference actually could be minor. It could be just like where you place the button, or how you describe your product, or what image that you use on your website to show your product to the visitors. So this is called A/B test. So why growth hacking? As we mentioned previously, startups tend to have very limited resources. Okay, so they need to be really creative to acquire new users and to retain them and to grow the sales to them. Okay, and so that's why growth hacking is very attractive to the startup firms. So the traditional marketing channel because the traditional marketing channel are very expensive and saturated with a lot of competitor. And so if we learn how to use internet marketing creatively, that may give us advantage in terms of grow our business. So this growth hacking partially is related to internet marketing, which we have some lecture and resources to cover that. And a lot of startup tends to be very product centric, but if you want to grow eventually, you need to focus on the marketing, and here it is referred to as distribution, which include channel, customer relationship, as we mentioned, those two building blocks in the business model canvas. And so growth hacker don't really care about the brand awareness. They care about just return on investment. They want to find out what works, and all their action are driven by metrics, which is what in Lean Startup we call it validated learning. Okay, you use data that you collected through your experiment and gain insight to validate some of the hypotheses that you have, and learn from that insight and revise your product and services, and evolving your minimum viable products to eventually a mature product to be sold in the marketplace. Why growth is important? Paul Graham actually has a simple kind of calculation to show the importance of the growth. Here we're just using a simple table showing here. If the weekly growth is from 1% to 10%, and if you compound that growth rate to annual growth rate, it end up to be, if it's 1%, the annual growth is 1.7%, and 2% to 2.8 times. Sorry, this is not 1.7. It's 1.7 times annual growth rate growth. And so if your weekly growth rate is 10%, you're growing your business 142 times once again, this is not percentage, it's 142 times. Okay, you can calculate this easily in Excel with a formula like this, and this is the weekly percentage. This is 52 weeks, so you can easily do your math. Okay, so even a 2% weekly growth will end up to be almost 3 times growth, which is actually quite impressive, by the way. But if you can reach 10% growth weekly, that's really amazing. Okay. And so for entrepreneurs that starting their company, their value creation is really rely on the growth. Not just the revenue they generated, but the growth and the potential and the momentum of that growth. However, try to build up the growth is very challenging, and as challenging as just building your product. So that's where the growth hacking kind of come in. Just give you some wider sized example for growth hacking. Hotmail was one of the earliest web-based free email system, which was later acquired by Microsoft. Initially, they have a hard time promoting this free service, and what changed and helped them to grow tremendously was that they decided to kind of program a feature into their email system, so that at the end of each existing user outgoing email, they will have a link linking back to Hotmail's website. Basically just tell people, hey, your friend is using Hotmail, which is a free email. If you want one, come here, we'll give you a free one. So within 7 months, they had over 2 million users. 30 months, which is about two year and a half, they grow to about 30 million users. So they have a tremendous, almost exponential kind of growth rate. Okay, so that tagline at the end of the Hotmail is "P.S. I love you," and get your free email at Hotmail with a link. The company was sold to Microsoft a year and a half later, and after launch, and by that time, Hotmail has about 12 million users. PayPal is another example that kind of where how growth hacking is working. PayPal was used by eBay, and eBay eventually bought PayPal. So on eBay system, whenever you need to process the payment between the buyer and seller, they would recommend that you use PayPal or Visa, MasterCard, American Express, Discovery, etc. However, PayPal is always put up front because eBay owns it. The coverage. They also provide some additional coverage to pay for. If you pay for PayPal, you will be covered with the full purchasing price. This make PayPal very popular among eBay's user, and eventually spread to other situation. It helped PayPal to grow its marketplace. In order to kind of grow your startup's product and services, you need to identify kind of what experience that you want your user must have, and you need to identify the most passionate users and why they love your system, what is driving them, and you want to get their kind of feedbacks in terms of how they actually receive the value. What's their perceived value of your product and services? If we step back, we mentioned that growth hack is, to some extent, at the core of it is really marketing. But the marketing, at the core of the marketing is lead generation, generate leads, finding potential customer. And we can use ads, commercials to drive awareness and eventually to drive sales. We could use public relationships and publicity. That sometimes is free, sometimes you will pay PR agency to generate the buzz in various news outlets. It will drive attention and eventually also drive sales. We could also use social media to drive the communication to the target audience and eventually to drive sales once again. So marketing is not an end unto itself. It's simply put just to get customers. And anything that you do can get you customer is, by our definition, marketing. So marketing could be qualitative and quantitative. Qualitative allowed us to kind of study the user's emotions and drive some of the actions. The quantitative approach in terms of marketing help us to measure particular those actions that the user may perform, because then we can quantify them. And together we try to design a better user experience product, which is design. UX means user experience. And also distribution, which is the marketing effort. We will track in terms of the volume of the user, the cost of providing the product or services, and the conversion rate of converting prospect or lead into a register or even a paying customer. So if we look at, once again, what's the difference between marketing and growth hacking? Growth hacking is basically marketing plus engineering. The engineering here is really referring to system development, which means you try to build certain feature in your product or services to help you to promote your product and services to potential customer. Here's is an example for Airbnb. Airbnb, in the early day when you sign up and post your room in your home for rent, or the whole house to be rent, Airbnb actually will help you to kind of cross post your listing on Airbnb to Craigslist. They automate that process, so it will be free to you and you get more exposure. Okay, but eventually, certainly Craigslist doesn't like people who kind of take advantage of its platform because they're not getting any money out of it, and decided to kind of shut it down. But that's a classic example of taking advantage of the platform's API of another popular system and integrate with them. So this is example of Airbnb's posting end up to be posted on Craigslist. Instagram also use cross-posting. If you take a picture on Instagram, it will allow you to kind of cross-post the pictures to a lot of platforms, social media platforms. Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Flickr, Foursquare, Weibo in China, etc. So what is growth hack or growth hacking? It's marketing, more creative marketing, because you are the little guy, don't have a lot of resources, you're the David versus Goliath. and you need to be very creative and use the resources that you have wisely. It is also about software engineering and automation. You try to automate certain process, and certainly you can test it by hand first, but eventually you do want to automate it to reach some degree of efficiency. And it is also about data analytic and testing. So you want to know your customer by heart, try to measure everything they do. So eventually we hope that the growth is repeatable, which means if with the right frameworks and we can replicate the growth pattern strategy by other company and use it successfully.